What an original name.
What an original name.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Pei had some special name for it. Behind us is the Great Court, which that sounds much better. And I love looking at it from here because it looks like this mysterious thing.
Right.
What is it? There is a thing in architecture called compression and release, which you have a little bit of that here, you know, the blocking it. And then once you get in, it's like, we'll be up there.
Is there a reason why there are screens on the backside?
Yeah, these are not original. These came later. Originally, it was just all beautiful concrete. There was no wood in here, but I think to try to warm it up a little bit. And I'm just so impressed by how large this tour is. Like, wow. Thank you all for braving the weather and coming out. All right, I think that's everybody. Kara, yes?
Could I get you to speak up a bit?
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to pick it up now that I'm going to talk. Appreciate it. Barry, do we know if that's everybody?
This is everybody.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is the man of the hour, J Erik Jonnson. He was born in 1901 in New York City. His parents had immigrated to New York just a few years prior to that. When he was appointed mayor, it was very clear that he had a great interest in urbanism. He probably was one of our first mayors to have such a large interest in it, in the built environment, and how to create a city of the future. Right after he takes office, he takes a little trip to Europe, to Scandinavia in particular. He was very clear to point it out to the newspaper that he was paying for it, because it was tied to his business trip with Texas Instruments. But he took some time to go to Scandinavia to take a look at the cities of the future that were being developed there at that time. When he ended up in Copenhagen, he sent back dispatches to Dallas kind of throughout the tour, and the Dallas Morning News was quoted to say, when he got to Copenhagen Town Square, it showed us how a city hall might be built. We liked how the town hall looked onto a big square. So you can probably say it was about that time where he really started to get the idea, form the idea of creating a new Dallas City Hall. In June of 1964, he establishes 2 citizen-led committees, a 12-member overall committee that would make the final recommendations to City Council on how to move forward with, another annex, a new building, and then a 9-member committee that studied 3 sites for a future City Hall. They studied the existing site that's in the core of downtown. They studied Ferris Plaza area, which is Union Station area, and then they studied this site because of the fact that it was in a comprehensive planning document of the city. The 2 committees ultimately came together and decided on this site. It took about 7 months to do so. And Carl Thompson, one of the committee members, was quoted to say, when you stand on this site and look back at downtown Dallas, you get a mental picture of what can be achieved here. You get mighty enthusiastic. When the first pieces of land were constructed, Mayor Jonnson was quoted to say, this is an exceptional site. We should never settle for anything humdrum. Let us try for something truly beautiful and imaginative. That's a great mayor line. The site offered future expansion opportunities. The building was actually later designed to include an annex off the rear if it were so desired, lots of land. It was near freeways during a very car-centric time, which of course we still are today, but as the car was becoming more dominant, it was important to have easy access. And there appeared to be a shift to pull the City Hall from the downtown core. George Underwood Jr. had a lot to say on the issue. He said, the idea of having a lot of city services in the heavy downtown retail area makes no sense to me. This makes it difficult for the city, the merchant trying to do business, and for the citizen fighting their way to City Hall. Well, a site had been selected. The next step is, of course, an architect. Everybody by now knows that IM Pei designed this building. I think you probably know that. It was his first building to be designed here in Dallas. The committee member for the selection included the likes of Ruth Collins, Stanley Marcus, probably friends of the mayor. Before IM Pei was selected, Erik Jonnson knew him. one of Erik Jonsson's business partners at Texas Instruments, Cecil Green, had asked Pei to design a building for MIT that he happened to be funding. So Jonnson had met Mr. Pei at the dedication of this building, at that building that was built at MIT. And so there began a little bit of a relationship. Yes, there was a committee established. I think it was pretty clear that Jonnson was kind of pushing for Pei to be chosen, and he was chosen in January of 1966. If you're counting up, we're now nearing almost the 2-year mark from, this was a long process to get here. Pei had just been selected for another prestigious commission, that being the John F. Kennedy Memorial Library in Boston. Jacqueline Kennedy had personally chosen him. So if you think about it, IM Pei had the responsibility of designing a building to perpetuate Kennedy's memory up in Boston, but he had another opportunity or another challenge here to create a building that was trying to overcome that painful memory of his assassination. Quite a tie to national history, if you ask me. There are some major Pei themes expressed here. One of those being, as we're going into the court, you'll see these barrel-vaulted ceilings, kind of a distribution of light. Pei used that frequently moving forward beyond this building. He loved geometry as well. This slanted facade is, I think, probably world famous. Everybody knows about it. It creates quite some discussion. He liked to create dialogue between buildings. He wanted to have a building that contrasted the buildings around it. And he really liked to have his buildings on a lot of open space, which was somewhat uncommon. After this building's design, Pei would go on to build some other very major buildings. He designed the Meyerson Symphony Center here in Dallas. That's his only concert hall he ever designed. I had the privilege of actually singing there. I sing with the Dallas Symphony Chorus, so to get to perform from that stage is a great honor. It's a lot of fun. Pei designed the National Gallery of Art East Building in Washington, D.C. It actually kind of looks like the Meyerson a little bit if you go look at it. But his most famous work was the Louvre Pyramid in Paris. Now, it really was called the Grand Louvre because it wasn't just a pyramid. He designed everything that's underground. When you interact with that space, when you go there to the Louvre, when you go underground in the entry areas and the layouts and the renovations of the interior of all of those buildings, it's an incredible story. There's actually he talks about it on YouTube. He did a talk at MIT. It's a fascinating history of how he had to fight the French government to do it. He was responsible for everything, including how the light enters through the roof of the buildings and is dispersed to all these rare paintings. Some of those kind of designs and ideas he was coming up with were probably started here. So something to point out about Pei's design, he wanted you, when you walked into this building, for you to kind of know immediately where to go, a kind of natural flow. There's an information desk right over there in case you needed a little help, but it was kind of natural to look this way and see, well, there's something interesting over here. Let's go see what that is. There were 2 escalators here in those days. They've been removed. This was a later addition. I actually like the staircase. It looks like it always belonged here. I think it was removed because there were plenty of elevators, obviously. So the idea of a horizontal orientation, why did Pei decide that? Well, you can obviously tell it's extremely wide when you're standing here. The idea was to create, again, that dialogue with the buildings in the future. He saw the private sector. He looked out here and said, those are all private buildings that are tall. Why don't we make it nice and wide to create this contrast? Because government is the foundation of a community. There's also been a lot of discussion over the years about the slanted facade. Why do we have this giant 34-degree slant? Well, I think it's just Pei trying to increase this contrast. When you look at a lot of these buildings, especially the older ones, they taper as they go up. Some of them do, at least if you think about buildings like the Chrysler Building or the Empire State Building, they have setbacks. So Pei, to increase that contrast, decided, well, as this building gets taller, it's going to get wider. It's going to have more of an impression. I think this building would look a little odd as a triangle sticking up into the air. It probably wouldn't look quite so strong as a government building. So again, these wood panels are not original. They were added a little later. But now we're going to move to the great court behind me. And I was mentioning earlier, if you didn't hear me, you have a little bit of a compression and release. As you go up, you can't really see it all, and then it just kind of emerges. It's a pretty cool spot. So, and if you need an elevator, you're welcome to take the red elevators around the stairs.
Oh, this is going to be so cool having this on film. Dun, 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 dun.
So it's just part of our walk and talk. You may have heard some noise while we were down there from out in the plaza. And I'll just say that when people are down there, let's say there's a protest, there's any gathering, what I think is remarkable is that we can hear you in City Hall. And like all of those meanings of the people can be heard are right there, right? You could hear them while we were there, and they're further down. And so even earlier, it was a little bit louder, and we were standing over there with the chairs. We could hear them.
Is that right?
And I think that's really an important item to think about on this design, that still, even outside the building, people were heard. The question is, are you being heard today? That's for you to decide. But if you want to go on over by the chairs, that's where Reagan's going to do the next segment. Hello. On a sunny day, the light streams in and bounces off of all of this. It's very lovely. So Reagan, she was saying that you wouldn't think you would hear it because of all the concrete. We were going to talk about as much glass there.
Yes, yes, there is. So here in the Great Court, it's kind of where you start to forget that the building is horizontal in form. It's 100 feet tall from the floor to the bottom of the barrel vaults above you. So this is where I talk about the sections of the building. You know, most office buildings, when you're looking for an office, you know the floor number, and then you go to a suite number, and that's it, I suppose. In this building, Pei developed this section system where if you look on the walls, you can actually see the numbers, 2D north, 2C north. The far end beyond that wall, that's section A. Section F is the far end beyond that wall. Section E is the entry. That's how I always remember it, the lobby area. And the idea was if you knew that you needed to go to section 3DN, it was right here. If you worked in the building, it was this section right here. And so when you're working here, I could see how you could memorize it a little more quickly. It may or may not work so well for the first-time visitor, but it was at least some form of innovation that Pei was trying to develop at the time. It's purposefully intimate, so to speak, here on the first level. Pei wanted it to be easy for you to find where you wanted to go on this level where most of the public would come to do their business. However, it is altered a little bit. These customer service areas were not closed in like this now, not all the way down, up and down. You could see through to the back a little more, which made it a little more open. And these cubicles were not here as well. There were some customer service counters here. 2C North, this main center area, this was effectively another lobby, another seating area. It had couches, pieces of art on loan from the Dallas Museum of Art, tables where you could go and sit and wait to do business when you're waiting for someone, so to speak. It had this beautiful view of the plaza and downtown, of course. You'll see a really great view of what this kind of window looks like here in a little while. The building really doesn't have very many hallways, corridors. The primary way to get from one end to the other and around the building is through these walkways above. You can really only see two from here, but they set back as you continue to go up. And we're going to be able to see what that looks like now. So we're off to the flag room. It's that way up on the 6th floor, but I would like you to enjoy the court. So what we're going to do is, if you would like to walk this far, we're going to go down to the elevator. We're going to go up to the 6th floor and walk around. If you'd rather go directly to the flag room, you don't want to walk that far for whatever reason, you can go over here. And Barry is down there waving his hand, and you can take the red elevator up to 6, and the flag room is right there. So I would highly recommend the walk if you can.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was thinking you're pressing.
I'm gonna dig it. It's been even topic.
Yes.
So I figured I've never been here.
Glad you got to come see it. All right. Everybody remember we're going to 6. 6.
Great tour.
All right, we're probably loaded up here. Number 6. I don't put too many people on it. Okay, we did it.
Sounds like Myerson needs to be a landmark too.
Should be.
Yeah. Thank you. That is magnificent.
You're doing an excellent job. I'm sorry I didn't hear your introduction.
I'm Reagan.
And
I'm with the
you-
Landmark Commission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Trying to
Here.
understand this.
Yeah, we're trying.
If it has no cracks whatsoever, why, is it just a space issue? Is there what-
Well, there's a lot of things. It needs a lot of mechanical, electrical, plumbing kind of work, things like that. And we don't know what the condition is of the building. There's some saying they've
Nice to meet you. I love the pen.
Thank you so much.
Obviously, if you look here,
It surely does.
Very nice. Where is your church?
On St. Thomas the Apostle over by Love Field in Northern Mockingbird.
I'm trying to visualize it.
I'm sure you have, if you've been to Love Field.
Oh yes, I've been to Love Field.
Yes.
So, okay, very cool. Maybe
You
I'll-
have driven by it.
Incredible.
You may not have paid attention to it, but you have driven by it.
asbestos was obviously used for fire prevention. And thankfully, since it's all concrete.
Yeah, it's been so many
Well, it's nice to meet concrete.
What was your first name again?
Oh, yeah.
Josh. So I'm actually in Scotland. And so, well, and I'm actually Jewish, but I
Hear what he said?
Yeah, makes sense. Big fan of like there's no yes. Yeah, but they can't snoop on paper.
This is our largest room. This is a big room. I think there were some people who didn't come to the first tour and said, I'll just go to the second one.
Is this the first time y'all ever done tours like this?
Those cubicles don't have that. Yeah. We don't have a space for that. This is our fourth tour so far. These are probably the first proper tours other than the Preservation Dallas one.
I was gonna say we did. I think Preservation Dallas did a tour.
Yeah, they did a tour.
I was on the board.
Yeah. Oh, so they probably did. I'm sure they did one in the past.
Yeah.
These are probably the first like official. They're kind of official city. You know, it's got a council member and a landmark commissioner.
So tell us about what's at the front. Are those the main offices across the front of the?
Yeah. So the various offices as you go up are. City attorney's office is at the very top. You've got council members and their staffs on 5. Planning and developments down at the bottom. So it's all over the map. The city secretary's office is I think below us here. So pretty much all the major functions of local government are in this building in one form or another. With all these people, it makes you realize this is kind of what it sounds like when it's a work day. People talking,
Yes.
It's kind of live and
Yes, it is not quiet here at all.
yeah.
I understand this Garrett's husband will be making it close.
All my friends come to wow, it's so close.
My friends come in and get those pictures and they go, oh my gosh, they know I live in a place like
But what should be this one?
Wait, what street do you
I'm sorry?
What street do you say you live?
Brook Tree.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep going. I'm walking backward. I used to be a university tour guide, so thankfully there's no
You're doing
bricks.
a good job.
Yeah, there's no bricks to trip me here.
Hey, you were there for a while?
5 years. Almost 5.5 years now. It's flying by.
Special sergeant.
You been there for a while yourself?
Here.
That's all now.
I got a cool picture of I don't know if you saw me walk over there. Yeah. Oh, yes. He's been very helpful today.
Absolutely. Nice and
Yes. He's my favorite.
I'm Alan. Alan and Ray and I live there.
Yes, we do. Definitely. I don't think we need.
Not for less than right.
I'm hosting these meetings for a reason.
We're very grateful. constituents in the district.
Well, I just think people should see it because they're being told, $500 million to fix this building, and I don't know, are you seeing $500 million or more?
It's pretty good.
I see work that needs to happen.
I mean, it needs some maintenance work like any 47-year-old building. So, it's funny, we just had a plumber at our house on Friday. He saw a new kitchen faucet. The kitchen faucet I had purchased was sitting on the counter. And at one point I said to my husband, I said, well, I don't think you need to call the plumber. Let's just tear the house down because I need a new faucet.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's the conversation happening here. So, we need new elevators. I'm just going to tell you, I'm concerned how many people are getting in the elevator. I don't want them to get stuck.
Hey, listen, they can line this whole area with slot machines and turn it into a casino that they want.
And also to know that councils prior to your tenure deferred maintenance. And now all of a sudden it's this, we have to sell it, and it went from 15 to 30 to 50, 100, now 500 million. And I'm like, this building
you
should
go
be...
back and watch the February 14th, 2024 council meeting.
Okay.
You'll see me and TC sparring about the cost for this building, and he says it could be up to $50 million. And I'm like, well, you have all that ARPA money, $700 million of ARPA money came to the city. Why don't you use the ARPA money? Why don't you use our general fund? But we don't need to go into debt in the bond to fix this building.
Exactly.
Which, is a pretty constant thing I talk about not going into debt for things that we should be paying on a regular basis. I don't go into debt to put the new faucet in my kitchen sink.
Right.
Right? I'm paying that out of our monthly operating funds.
Yes.
And so, same thing, if we need a new boiler, we should be able to save up a little bit and spend it. But even if we did, there's other ways to do it, and we can get a lot of money from the federal government. It's certainly not 500 million.
I don't know why they
it might
thought
be
we would
50.
blindly believe those inflation numbers.
Well, so welcome to the flag room. I love this room. I will tell you it is widely used. If you see a flag that is missing from a country that you wish had one here, all these flags were gifted to the city. We didn't purchase them. So you can see who's come to visit us and brought a flag with them. And this space is actually very well used. So I just scheduled an upcoming faith leaders talking about homelessness roundtable. It'll be up here. There's all our press conferences are generally here. And you'll notice those flags often in the background. And you might even notice from the balcony, the shots that the media might take of what's happening in this room. So now you've seen it and you understand what's happening here. This is also the overflow space. So I can imagine that we'll have a meeting to talk about City Hall, and there's 250 seats in the auditorium. They might be filled, in which case it would overflow here, the meeting would be on the screen, and let's say you signed up to speak, your name would be called and you'd run down there to give your best 3 minutes or however much time the mayor allows. But this is the flag room, and I do think the civic spaces that Reagan's talked about through the tour, this has become the default one instead of others that were intended to be that.
Absolutely. All right, so again, this wasn't really intended to be a multi-purpose room, but that's kind of what it's become. It was originally a seating area, kind of like what was downstairs in the Great Court. For people to wait for meetings to be over, maybe meet with people, so that was important. So in November of 1964, Mayor Jonnson announces the Goals for Dallas program. This is a first edition copy right here that was ultimately released in 1966. This name kind of reflected the overall reason for its coming into existence. It was a set of goals put together initially by 87 residents from throughout the community, from across a broad spectrum of people. And of course, over time, more and more community engagement was sought. that made many recommendations for city functions, health, welfare, education, cultural activities, recreation, and of course there just so happened to be some mentions in here about how we needed beautiful city facilities. That was important, right? So I'll read to you a little bit, a couple of quotes that I find interesting. Many people are indifferent to downtown, perhaps because it does not offer the drama, variety, and zest that one instinctively expects of their number one place. This is ironic, considering that thousands spend their best hours there. As one moves through the central district, the center of town is never found. There's no spot that speaks out for the entire city to say, this is Dallas, nor do any of the current public or private proposals contain the idea for such a central place or places. The design for this building had not been released yet. Nowhere is there relief for the eye from the stultifying sameness of building and street. Can we develop open spaces, galleries, concourses, and plazas, strategically located and well protected and suitably modulated? There exists no place for the pedestrian to stop, rest, sit, or get out of the stream of traffic. No place exploits key vistas and the architecture of fine buildings. Can we develop parks throughout the district with trees, benches, water, and opportunities for refreshment? So you can see how this little planning document perhaps had a little bit of a role in the long-term development of our community. This building was really just the beginning. This document was revised and changed over the years. I think it was used up until the 90s even, or at least the late 80s for long-term planning in the city. So about the plaza, obviously right out this window, this was our first Clyde Warren Park. This was our first major public open space in downtown Dallas, 4.5 acres. It was purchased with parks bonds. That's important to note because it is a park. There are special requirements for getting rid of parkland and how to develop it. Think about all of the major events throughout the year that occur here. We have Dallas Marathon. We have protests like what we've had today, people demonstrating, events, remembrances. When we had the police who were murdered, in that tragic event just right outside here in the center of town. We've had major remembrances events here throughout the years. And of course, also, when Queen Elizabeth II came, she rolled right up in front of her Rolls Royce, and the mayor greeted her. So there's been many major events throughout the years here, and how this plaza and City Hall interact are quite important. I dare say that if we moved out of this building, where would we move to that A, has this plaza civic function?
Exactly.
And would we have the same ability to have this wonderful open space for us to gather at any time we so wish, because it is our space to gather?
I'll just point out that, we've got rain, but does anybody see water? Like, have you seen water anywhere? No. There's some water in the garage. The garage. The other thing is, if you look right down, that's the mayor's balcony. And so you can check at that when we're leaving. On the far left and far right, you'll see there's glass panels that were added. That was added for this Mayor Jonnson with his young family. Previously, literally, you could fall over the edge. So I guess they trusted adults not to do that, but the young kids not so much. So that's one of the newest things at City Hall, I believe. And almost every group has asked if a mayor has ever given a speech from there. I don't know. I hope not, because that seems very,
Authoritative.
Yeah. So I hope not, but I have not seen it. But it is used, and certainly I've stood out there and debated tax policy with the mayor. And then I know a lot of photos with dignitaries have been taken on the balcony. So just a little thing you can see if you look over.
Wow.
So the plaza has been critiqued a little bit over the years too. You're probably aware of that. You have to think that Pei was kind of looking to the northeast when he designed it, kind of what he was familiar with. I don't think he was familiar with the Dallas heat. And so there definitely, there are some problems. I think it could be repurposed, but nevertheless, it's still an important space for our downtown long term. Okay, now we're going to move into the City Council chambers. Yes.
Thank you. Is this where you're going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be down here.
How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Feels like home.
I know, right? I'm like, wait a minute.
It's not a public meeting.
Sorry.
I'll let you speak.
So why don't we get a foundation for like
That's a good question. I think probably because it's just so much older. It's always exciting.
There's a question about how we sit around the horseshoe. I'm the fourth chair from the left. You can find your council member's name. It's actually a very fun process for people to watch about how we decide where to sit. It's a little bit like, picking on teams, players. So based on seniority, you pick your chair, but of course, there's 3 people who were elected with me that never had a runoff. So me, Chad West, and Jaime Resendez, so we get first dibs. Although, if you're Mayor Pro Tem, you sit in a certain seat, or Deputy Mayor Pro Tem. So that's why Moreno and Willis are there. And so, for my first 6 years, I sat in the same exact seat on the right, and then I moved over to the left. There's a lot inside baseball in this whole thing. If you run for city council, I'll explain it to you after your election.
Hint, hint.
Yes, go chair.
You will find newbies on the very end because people up here might want to talk to them, and basically we're like the process. In this format.
So, like I've said before, it took 14 years to get us to this place. So from the time Erik Jonnson visited Copenhagen to the opening of this building in March 13th in 1978, when the building was dedicated, you're welcome to take a look at this later, there were a bunch of bronze medallions made. They handed these out to VIPs that showed the building and these famous flagpoles out in front.
Wow.
And I don't know who got one of these. I'd be curious to know. So, best estimates is that it took about $70 million to construct over the course of that time. If you just calculate that based off inflation from the mid-70s, that puts it at about $400 million of today's money. Pretty incredible. A couple dozen council members were involved, 4 mayors, 3 city managers, and it was a huge effort. It didn't actually break ground until 1972, after Erik Jonnson had left office. It took many strong voices to get it over the finish line. There were quite a few. One that I noted a few times was George L. Allen, Councilman George L. Allen, who became, I believe, a judge. The courts building is named after him here. He said that Dallas City Hall would give Dallas an outstanding spot of interest. I always liked that phrase, very understated phrase, which I think they knew that they were building something great. This continues to emphasize the idea that the building not only defines Dallas, but was defined by Dallas. Even with our neglect, it stands to proudly serve us today. That's what an institutional, monumental building is supposed to do. Your average office tower, your average office building is not built to these kind of extreme standards to last as long as this one would. Yes, there are a lot of problems. It needs some mechanical, electrical, plumbing. It's almost 50 years old. Every 50-year-old building needs that. The lobby you've seen, the great courts closed in with cubicles. It's got old carpet. It has needs. These are things we could fix. If this building were demolished, it would be the first major commission of IM Pei to be demolished in the United States, except for an airport terminal. in New York. I think we know that airport terminals kind of come and go a little bit, but there's nothing of this magnitude in the United States that's even been considered to be demolished of his design. There's no doubt we're going to hear discussions of cost-benefit. I dare say that cost-benefit alone, even if the numbers are correct, is not the only reason to get rid of a building. I ask, are we going to have these same kind of conversations about the Meyerson, another building that's important to me? Are we going to have these same kind of conversations about Fair Park? It already has enough issues.
Right.
We know that those buildings are very costly to maintain for the long run, but we maintain them, or at least we try to, because we know that they're important to the image of Dallas and our history. I believe this building is in that same
Yes, it is.
same
Yes, it
category.
is. Yes.
We must remember that architecture is subject to changing tastes. When this building was built in the 70s, people probably looked, in fact, I know they looked at Swiss Avenue and said, those are just a bunch of old homes, who would want those? I'll buy myself a new house up in Benttree. But instead, some people led the charge for preservation, and our first historic district was established, Swiss Avenue. We can't imagine the city without those houses today. What about the Adolphus Hotel? I'm sure in the 70s people thought that's just another old hotel. Let's go stay somewhere else. But now we can't imagine our city without it. I wonder if this building were lost, would we look back and wonder what that building was like?
Yes.
It tells a story of a particular history of our city, a particular time of our city. I also make a point as an urban planner. You can tell this city hall took a lot of planning. I don't see anywhere in our comprehensive planning documents that says this building needs to be demolished for some kind of private gain.
Thank you. One more time, please.
That's enough. Downtown Dallas 360, I don't know. It looks like it's planned to be a wonderful key activity node for our downtown. Let's renovate our plaza, make it a great place. Let's make this building welcoming inside where people can get around and enjoy it, because this is your building. I look at the Downtown Parks Master Plan. It calls this area the Dallas Civic Center. If we lose this building, does our Civic Center area disintegrate overnight? This is a defined area of our community. It's bad planning if we leave this area right now. This Parks Master Plan says, redesign City Hall Plaza to accommodate active programming, strengthen the Dallas Civic Center with new residential development, enhance streetscape improvements, all of these kind of good planning documents, long-range planning. That's what a good city does. It doesn't demolish something overnight for someone else's gain. Other cities have worked to preserve their brutalist buildings. Look at Boston. Think of the architecture in Boston and the history that's there. But they took the time to realize that their brutalist city hall is an important part of their history and story. Are we going to let Boston beat Dallas?
No.
And lead us in the way?
No.
Those people are jealous of our city hall, because that city hall, you want to talk about functionality? I visited a few times. So Mayor Erik Jonnson, J Erik Jonnson, had a lot to say, as I've already talked about, the built environment. One of my favorite quotes that he said, it was given in 1968 when this building the design had been released by then. And he said to a group of students, I believe, cities are meaningful symbols of the labor of man to achieve on a grand scale and to build something by which to be remembered. Nevertheless, these monuments of masonry and steel, aluminum and glass, these shining spires and graceful shapes, clustered near river or forest, by mountain or sea, however durable the materials of their construction, are only the physical manifestation of what a city is. A building's reason for being is to serve people as they apply their efforts, divide their work, and use their talents and skills so as to maximize their value, and to secure themselves and their families against the hazards of nature, such as a gentle rainstorm, and those created by man to grow in stature, to improve their way of life, physical, mental, and spiritual. So clearly, he had a vision. He brought it forward. But his vision has often been chastised. I think we all know that this building has its detractors. It's not perfect, but it is unique. But there's one key supporter of this building that I always love to talk about, and that's Ada Louise Huxtable. Ada Louise Huxtable was the New York Times architecture critic. She would make or break architects in the mid century and beyond, and I think she was active until probably the early 2000s. And she had much to say about this building when it opened. She said, "The building has been achieved through skillful and appropriate exploitation of structure and form. The result is a major work of architecture and urban design. Not a few Dallas observers have been puzzled and outraged by the design's unconventional and assertive monumentality. But city officials insisted that they wanted a significant building. They got what they asked for and even more. After the dust of construction and controversy settles, Dallas should feel nothing but pride." So I hope that after this tour, you might share this same pride in your building again. Thank you. Anything else?
So we're going to go aside. You're the last group. We're happy to take a couple of questions if you want. But it is sort of the end of the line. There are a couple of Dallas City Hall's yard signs that are available by the doors that you came in if you want to take them. Yes. So if you need to go, of course, you can doors on the left and the elevators are right there. You go down to one. But Ray, you're good to take a couple questions?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
So IM Pei wasn't involved in the library.
No, he was not.
So how did the library come about to reflect City Hall?
That's a good question. So the question is, IM Pei was not involved in the library, and how did it reflect City Hall? I guess it's just a really good architect who designed it to reflect it, kind of stepping back. I actually don't know too much on the history of the library.
Okay.
Yeah, just
because it's very complimentary.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yes.
Yes.
I did have a question as far as educating, the Dallas public, and there's been quite a few stories about, the possibility of leaving this building, moving somewhere else, etc. There's quite a bit of things that I learned today that I didn't know, and I'm wondering, how the city and the people who value this historic building are sharing some of that history.
Right.
Because I don't think enough people know the historic value.
Well, that's definitely why we're having, these tours.
Yeah.
This building hasn't had so much of a focus over the years because I think people thought it was safe.
Yeah.
Well, first off, the Landmark Commission is trying to designate it a landmark. The Landmark Designation Committee, which is a subset of the Landmark Commission, is working on the criteria and the history and working to make that public so everybody can know the whole history, and that should be soon that that's made public. I can't say when because I'm not on that committee. But there are several groups. There's the Save Dallas City Hall Coalition. You can go to savedallascityhall.com. I believe there's some history of the building there. Of course, this is this story that I've told is somewhat hard to communicate in and on its own in writing. It's one of those things you have to experience, and maybe we'll have more of these tours. Looks like somebody's got it actually recorded. Now I'm looking at your camera. That's good. Hopefully this one was the best of the 4 tours, but we're trying. Hopefully you can communicate with your friends the importance of this building.
Quinn Matthews made an entire 8-minute YouTube video of it that talks about a vision for Dallas and the history of it. And then there's also a second video that describes, hey, is Dallas City Hall in desolation pretty much? And it goes through the AIA architects basically describing this is actually how much it would cost and things like that. It's on YouTube and then on Save Dallas City Hall.
Yeah, it's like we need to do
I'm trying to get some famous architecture Instagram people engaged, and I don't know why I can't get them engaged. It's very odd. Yes,
Let
ma'am.
me help
Will the
you.
final determination as to whether to keep the building be put to a public vote?
I'm not sure. That would be council's decision, and right now it's not looking that way. Kara would love that. I think she'd be okay with me saying that's what she's openly asked for. I think some of these major decisions will occur in the next month or so, so we need to be vigilant, follow these different, ways to track Save Dallas City Hall or Kara Mendelson's, if you're registered for her newsletter, she'll probably keep you updated. Anything else?
I'm having former councilwoman
Valletta
Lil and Marcel Quimby on Coffee and Politics in March to talk about the whole historic landmark preservation
She'll be good.
efforts. So make sure you tune into that. This live stream will be on Coffee and Politics on Facebook, and then I will move it over to Coffee and Politics Online on YouTube, where it will be archived into perpetuity. So make sure you share.
Yes, sir.
Are there any petitions or anything if that's something that would be helpful?
There is a petition. If you go to DallasCityHall.com, I know there was a change.org petition. The petition is probably over 6,000 signatures now. Yeah, it's a lot. A lot of interest. We've got to keep the interest up. I think when this first came out, there was a huge groundswell, and the holidays have happened and people get distracted. But
So I'm sorry I stepped out. It sounds like you did my little spiel about SaveDallasCityHall.com, and it really does matter if you are interested in preserving this building, us not abandoning this building, for whatever your motivation is. That's really the most effective thing you can do right now is to send emails. And so if you go out with your friends, say, hey, everybody pull out your phone, go on this site, let's all send an email right now. What happens is, let's say you are in Chad West District, but everybody else on council is copied. So I can see the most emails have actually come in to Councilmember Ridley. Chad West is probably number 2. But every council member has been receiving these emails and the copies of the ones to the others. So they can see that the people of Dallas truly care about this building. People have asked about, well, when's the meeting? When can I come speak? What should I do with this? We don't have that schedule laid out. And even as council members, I've never been part of a briefing that involves the Mavericks. What would the plan be for this if it was abandoned? None of that has been publicly discussed or even privately in an executive session, which we can have about real estate legally. Now, have some council members maybe gotten a separate one-on-one briefing? Probably, but I have not been one of them. I think it's been pretty clear what my position is from the beginning. So that's how you can be involved. Again, there are some yard signs left by the door if you'd like to grab one. And just stay plugged in. Most council members are sharing information about this with people because I think nobody would want to get flat-footed that says, wow, I didn't even tell my people this was coming, right? So at least make sure people know about it. So I do think it's being pretty widely covered in the media. Again, they'll cover it more if you're talking about it. So we've offered these so that people can see for themselves. I mean, I hope you look around here and go, wow, there really are no cracks. I don't see evidence of any water damage. I do see that it needs new carpeting. But there's a Wi-Fi issue when you have concrete walls, but again, there's a pretty easy technological solution for that. The elevators probably need to replace. There's probably some work that needs to be done on the roof. At 46 years, things happen. Yeah. So anyhow, that's the scoop. I really appreciate you coming out. And please help me thank Reagan for being such an incredible landmark commissioner for District 12, yes?
End of my fifth, I suppose, yes. And I'm just glad there are this many people interested in this building. Everybody thought I was crazy when I wanted to landmark.
I think it's your 6, now that you're 7.
Well, no, 2022.
Why isn't there a process to have a building designated as historic landmark?
There is. It's in that process now. It would go once the Landmark Commission, if they formally approve the draft of the ordinance, it goes to Plan Commission and then City Council. So the Landmark Commission right now is working on drafting what that ordinance and what the history actually is for the building so that it can be recommended. What's that?
Can that take place in time and save the building?
Well, City Council ultimately approves it, so they just could say no. They don't have to approve it. Right now it is under a pre-designation moratorium. It can't be demolished until the 2 years is up, which that would be March of next year.
Nobody wants that on their campaign watch. Nobody wants that on their
Any other
campaign
questions?
that they participated in.
Kara? Why don't you ask Kara? The question was, are there any districts that need more pressure politically to save City Hall? But I don't know how. How about just everybody? Just everybody call their council.
I think you should talk to the council member that's your council member, and everybody else will get copied on that. The only thing I would say in terms of pressure of council is that there's a number of people who are interested in running for mayor. And I'm not one of them. I will never run for mayor, just so you know. And, I'm term limited out, and while I have enjoyed serving, I have no interest in continuing. So, all that to say, anybody who has expressed an interest in running for mayor, which is many of the people on this council, I think there's an important message to be said that if you get rid of our city hall, you will never have our votes.
Exactly.
And I have put that out on social media saying nobody will ever be mayor that has advocated for getting rid of city hall. And I do believe that's the truth because any candidate would attack them for that.
Yep.
And probably deserve it.
Anything else?
So that might be an important thing for 1, 2, 3. I'm counting at least 7.
Are you serious?
Who have some amount of interest in running for mayor.
Wow. All right. Thank you all.
Just Dallas coffee.
Oh, he wants to